Andy Farrell has named his team for the third and final test against the Wallabies here in Sydney this weekend, and the Australians have named their team as well, so welcome back to the channel. I think this must be the 9th one of these that I've done, 9th or 10th? Certainly 9th out here in Australia, so thank you for watching. If you're still with us, then I appreciate you, and I would love it if you give me your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you make of the team? I'll go through it, but Andy Farrell, as expected, has gone strong. And what do you make of the Wallabies team as well? Do you think they have the capability of getting themselves on the board in this series, or are we looking at a historic whitewash? Let's get into it. As I say, comment down below, like the video as well, and I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. So I'll start off with the Lions. That's always kind of my focus here on the channel. 2 changes from the team that beat the Wallabies at the MCG in Melbourne. One of them in the back line, so James Lowe drops out entirely. Blair Kinghorn is promoted from the bench into the back 3. He's on the wing, so Hugo Keenan stays at fullback. So Kinghorn onto the wing, and then in the second row, James Ryan partners Maro Itoje, but it's a straight swap with Ollie Chesham, who goes to the bench. And with James Lowe dropping out entirely, it means Ben Earl comes back onto the bench. 6-2 bench split for the Lions. So Ben Earl and Jack Morgan there, which I thought they might do in Melbourne. They do it here in Sydney. So I'll run through the team. I think firstly, as we expected this week, and I was chatting to the Lions, what was it, not yesterday, so it must have been Tuesday, when they had Andrew Goodman and Maro Itoje up for interviews. And in fact, I uploaded those interviews, I think, in my previous video, so go and check it out if you haven't already. But the real feel from the Lions team and from both of those guys that were speaking was, we want to win this 3-0. I think it has been so evident all tour, go all the way back to the defeat to Argentina and how angry Andy Farrell was at that. They want to be a historic Lions side. They want to win this series 3-0. The Lions haven't done that since they did it to Argentina in 1927, which I think was a tour that was later recognised as a tour. So however you slice it up, we're looking at history here. And I think despite the fact that they've wrapped up the series, despite the fact they would have rightfully enjoyed those celebrations in Melbourne and here in Sydney in the early part of the week, this is a Lions squad that are motivated by 3-0. They want the whitewash and they want that slice of history. And the team selection is a complete reflection of that, because if you look at it, on the one hand, you look at a Tom Curry, who's an absolute warrior. Like, he is never going to take himself out of a starting 15. But if you look at his injury track record, you could make a case that, you know what, series is wrapped up, let's rest him. Even Maro Itoje is the captain. Maro plays a lot of games and a lot of minutes. He basically never gets substituted. So again, there would be an argument to say, well, why don't you start rotating some of these guys and replacing some of these guys, bring others in that haven't played yet. I totally get the player welfare side of it that I've touched upon there. From a purely Lions point of view, I love the fact that they haven't done that, because I love the fact that this test jersey is so special, and players in this squad haven't just been given it because they've won the series and their teammates are being rotated. You have to earn it. And that's what this team, I think, is a reflection of. So I absolutely love that. Run through it. Andrew Porter-Danshi and Tyg Furlong is the same front row as we saw in Melbourne. I think Ellis Genge, as I've said previously, has been absolutely excellent on this tour. I thought he was great again off the bench. He's almost been so good that they've ended up wanting his impact off the bench, but no complaints with the front row. And Tyg Furlong, extraordinary achievement, level now with Alan Wynne-Jones, 9 straight Lions test matches as a starter. That automatically puts you in the category of a great, doesn't it? To do it over the course of 3 different tours where you're the best in your position, you've stayed fit enough and your form has been consistent enough, that is exceptional. Maro Itoje, by the way, is starting his 8th straight test match. He's been involved in the last 9, but he actually came off the bench in the first test in New Zealand in 17. So both of those guys, bona fide legends, aren't they? Tyg Furlong, what a player. Form and fitness wasn't there at the start of the tour, but he has come good. What a player, what an achievement. Same for Maro Itoje. I think it's pretty special the last week for Maro that there aren't that many players that get to captain the Lions. There are even fewer that lead the Lions as captain to a test victory and a test series win. What have you got? Sam Warburton, Martin Johnson. I think someone said the other day, I need to double check this, there's 4 living Lions winning captains. So I guess there's a couple of those. Who's the one I'm missing? One of you might know, you can let me know. But Itoje's partnered by James Ryan. Now that is interesting. James Ryan, all of this tour, And actually, do you know what? This is where I would give Andy Farrell a huge amount of credit on his selections, because there have been multiple selections on this tour that, as I've spoken about on this channel, that has been spoken about pretty widely, weren't based on form. Tom Curry, Tyg Burn ahead of the first test. They weren't the best players in their position on form on the tour, but my God, they were good in Brisbane at Suncorp. James Ryan was another one in the second test. You looked at him coming off the bench and you thought, gee, we haven't seen the best of James Ryan this tour. I thought he was excellent off the bench at the MCG, and so he starts here now. So maybe there's no point in me saying, oh, James Ryan hasn't had the best of tours. Do you start Ollie Chesham? Andy Farrell has been justified, I think, in a lot of the selections and a lot of the controversial selections that he's made. Dare I say it, because I know it'll upset people, even Owen Farrell coming into the squad. I think Owen's looked really good on this tour. I think he was valuable coming off the bench in the second test. I think he looked good in the game in Adelaide, wasn't it, that we saw him? Oh, and at Marvel in that First Nations Pacifica game. Yes, on form. Should he have been selected onto the tour? I think Andy Farrell's got it right. I think he's got a lot of these big selections right. So James Ryan partners Maritoje. You could easily make a case for Ollie Chesham keeping his spot, but it's James Ryan who was really good off the bench. And then that back row that has been the back row, Tyg Burn and Tom Curry, absolute monsters. Jack Conan. I love Jack Conan, by the way. He seems like an awesome bloke. He's a great character. Excellent player as well. But he's going to be one of those players, potentially, that at the end of his career, he'll be a funny one. Because this is his 6th start in a row, I think, right, for the Lions. He started all 3 in South Africa, didn't he? All 3 test matches. But he very rarely starts for Ireland because he's behind Caelan Doris. But he's going to be this guy that starts all these test matches for the Lions. But he deserves it on this tour. I think he's been really good. And that back row is just... It's awesome, isn't it? I think it's such a well-balanced, such a classy back row. The halfbacks, Gibson Park and Finn Russell, what more do we need to say, really? I think they've been 2 of the Lions' best players. And actually, I think they have been a big point of difference when you compare the Lions with the Wallabies. It's more than just the halfbacks, 100%. The power in the Lions pack, the Wallabies have struggled with for most of the matches we've seen. Yes, the first half at the MCG, they did a great job, but generally they've struggled with the power. There's other areas of the team that the Lions have more quality. I think the most stark point, if you compare the teams in terms of quality, I think is halfback. And that's it's nothing against Tom Lynham. I mean, geez, he's a young kid. He played well in the first half at the MCG, but he's at the start of his test career. And you've got Finn Russell, who you feel has developed into this all-round world-class fly half. Gibson Park, I think, is a world-class operator at 9. And again, nothing against Jake Gordon, but they're just not on the same level. I think the Lions halfbacks have been awesome. Bundy Aki and Hugh Jones in the centres. I'm recording this before Andy Farrell has spoken, so I don't know what the situation at this moment in time is with Sione Tuipulotu. I know loads of you will probably think that Tuipulotu should have played 12 in the second test and should be playing 12 here if he's fit. It's just always felt to me that Farrell preferred Aki, and I wonder whether, despite the fact that Tuipulotu is a better all-round rugby player than Bundy Aki does one thing in particular really well and does it better than Tuipulotu, and that is get over the gain line as a head-down 12. And Glasgow and Scotland fans will probably disagree with me on that, but I just think you tell Aki to do that, he does that. I've seen some people say they didn't think he was that good in the second test. I actually thought he did that pretty well. I think he did what was asked of him well. So I'm not shocked to see him at 12. Hugh Jones continues at 13. He's had a good tour. Tommy Freeman, I think, has been excellent. It was interesting that Andrew Goodman kind of name-checked Tommy Freeman in press on Tuesday as just someone that's really classy, has done a lot of good stuff, a lot of really positive impacts on the game when he does get the ball. Hugo Keenan has grown into this tour, made himself a legend at the end of the second test. And then Blair Kinghorn, who I thought looked excellent off the bench. I think James Lowe hasn't had a great tour, actually. I think we haven't seen the best of James Lowe, which has been a shame. He's still a 2-test Lion here, so take nothing away from him. But it doesn't shock me that Blair Kinghorn comes in. And to run through the bench, Kelleher, Genge and Stewart, once again, as your front row replacements. Chesham drops from starting back onto the bench. Jack Morgan's there again. Ben Earl comes in, so they've gone 6-2. I think this gives you a bit more explosion. I think Ben Earl was unlucky to miss out in Melbourne. I think he's been really good every time we've seen him. I think it makes sense why you would want him. Mitchell continues at 9, Owen Farrell as your backline replacement. So they're potentially short in the backline if they pick up an injury. Particularly, I guess, in the back 3, potentially at 13, Freeman could cover that, but that's always the risk you run with the 6-2. Let me quickly look at the Wallabies, who it doesn't look as strong a team to me, I don't think, as the second test. So Alan Alaalatoa misses out. Taniela Tupu comes in. Interesting to me, they've still gone with James Slipper starting and Angus Bell coming off the bench. Nick White is playing his final match for the Wallabies. We haven't seen him in the previous 2 tests. I love Nick White, by the way. Seems like such a good bloke. So it's his swan song. He's retiring at the end of 2025. This will be his last match for the Wallabies, which I presume means his last match in rugby, unless he's going to do like a short-term contract somewhere to finish off. And Dylan Peach comes onto the left wing in place of Harry Potter, who also seems like a really good bloke. I interviewed him right at the start of the tour in Perth ahead of the Western Force game. And was a really interesting guy. He designs he's got his own art company and he's of Aboriginal heritage, so designs the pattern for a number of the jerseys and the Wallabies jersey in this series. But what do you think? Are we going to see a wounded Wallabies side that are playing for pride, are playing to essentially avoid being a historically bad opponent in terms of getting whitewashed in 3-0? That could be a powerful motivator, I think, for this Australian side. But you still look at the teams and you just wonder, are they going to have enough? They could well. We saw the damage they can do to the Lions, particularly in the first half in Melbourne. Do they have enough over the course of the 80 minutes? And I suppose that's where the bench comes into it. And the Lions bench, once again, is so strong here. Andrew Kellaway comes onto the Wallabies bench. They haven't gone 6-2 this week. But what we're going to see is a sellout in Sydney, by the way. So hopefully a great occasion, despite the series being done. Before the tour, I really, really wanted a decider. We haven't got that, and the Lions have been excellent to win the series 2-0 with a game to spare. But are we going to see Wallaby redemption or a historic 3-0? Right now, my gut instinct is 3-0, but let's see what happens. Let me know in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel, give me your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one.